Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Fantasy Week 5. It is Thursday, October 2nd, and this is Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sports book born in Vegas. We're going to tell you who we love this week. We're going to tell you who to sit, and we are going to give you starts and sits for Detroit at Cincinnati, Minnesota at Cleveland, that game in Europe, Las Vegas at Indianapolis, Washington at the Chargers, Kansas City at Jacksonville, Monday night. How you feeling about that one, Heath?
I guess it's October now, so it's a little bit more exciting, but
yeah.
Can we just get to the playoffs?
Got to play a 3-1 team on the road.
Yeah.
New England at Buffalo.
Terrifying.
New England at Buffalo Sunday night, and Dallas at the Jets. Jamey will be joining us in just a moment. So why don't we start with Heath's players he loves? Who do you love this week?
I love Cam Scatterbo, Jalen Waddle, and Tommy Tremble.
Okay, Scatterbo at the Saints, Waddle against the Panthers. Are they top 12?
Scatterbo is very close to top 12. Waddle, I think 16 or 17.
Okay. Would you start Waddle over the struggling A.J. Brown and Brian Thomas Jr.?
Yes.
Tell me about Tommy Tremble at Miami. That's an interesting one.
23% target share to tight ends for Bryce Young this year. Jatavian Sanders missed practice again Wednesday after not practicing all week last week. The Dolphins are terrible against tight ends.
Yeah. All right. So where is he in your rankings?
Top 10. He's 8.
8. Wow. Like Dalton Kincaid or Tommy Tremble?
I'm going to go with Tommy Tremble. I think Dalton Kincaid is tied with Dallas Goedert for the most fraudulent top 12 tight end in fantasy football right now. He had 2 targets last week and played 37% of the snaps.
Yeah, I got a stat on Dalton Kincaid. Let's welcome Jamey into the. Jamey has entered the chat. Good morning, Jamey.
Good morning.
Dalton Kincaid.
Please explain your terrible trade.
The one I just made?
The Superflex one.
You didn't like it? I asked Dave what side he'd take, and he took my side.
It's terrible.
Wow. Okay. I traded Ashton Genty and Jamar Chase for Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, and Blake Corum. I have Kyron Williams. I might have to drop Blake Corum because I'm one over the roster limit. But so if we just took those 4 players, I traded Genty and Chase in a PPR league for Jacobs and Adams. Surprised you don't like it so much. I mean, I think it's pretty neutral trade, but okay. Interesting. Anyway,
well, that kind of makes sense. Like you've said repeatedly, you think Devontae Adams is a first-round player rest of season.
Like on the board.
And you're the most skeptical of Jamar Chase rest of season. So
he was the most skeptical.
Robert's in the chatty. I love it.
What? Oh yeah, I made the trade with Rob in our league, and he's there, and he says I love it. Yeah. All right, Jamey, players you love this week: Justin Fields against the Cowboys. 3 straight quarterbacks have finished top 4 or 5 for the week against the Cowboys. Woody Marks at Baltimore and Tedero McMillan at Miami.
Yeah, I took the layup for the start of the week this week with Justin Fields. He should be awesome. Hopefully what we saw last week. His 2 healthy games, he's been awesome. 29 or more fantasy points. So not that he was injured early in the Buffalo game, but anyway, he should take advantage of this defense. It's a great situation. And like you said, last 3 quarterbacks to face them have gone over 30 fantasy points. So hopefully it's a great deal there for him. Woody Marks is facing a Ravens defense that's going to be missing most likely 7 of their starting defensive players coming off his breakout game against the Titans last week. Hopefully that continues, especially his role in the passing game. But I'm hoping that it's not just, hey, you had your week and now it's Nick Chubb's week again. But I think we could all buy into Woody Marks at this point. And then Tedero McMillan taking on a Dolphins defense that 2 receivers so far this year have gotten 8 targets against the Dolphins. Michael Pittman in week 1 and Garrett Wilson in week 4. Both those guys scored 20 PPR points. Hopefully Tedero McMillan gets his 8 targets and does something similar. But he's due for a big game. I think it happens this week.
Okay. So, again, to recap, Jamey loves Justin Fields against the Cowboys, Woody Marks at Baltimore, and Tedero McMillan at Miami. With Woody Marks, would you start him over Derrick Henry?
So, I have them back-to-back right now with Henry 1 spot ahead. Okay. I'm just slightly concerned that we get a little too much Nick Chubb.
Yeah. And then McMillan, I asked Heath if he would start Jalen Waddle over A.J. Brown and Brian Thomas Jr. Couldn't think of the other guys who were struggling. Would you start Tedero McMillan over A.J. Brown and Brian Thomas Jr.?
In a heartbeat.
All right. Let's move on to the players we're avoiding. But I want to remind you that we do have a game in Europe. It's in London, right?
Yes.
This Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. So we're going to have a live stream for you at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 until 9:30. We have our first live stream. Our second one will be noon to 1 Eastern time. And that's youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. So again, join us at 8:30 a.m. and then again at noon, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today on Sunday. Jamey wants to.
I hope the Vikings are taking advantage of Carson Wentz looking like Prince Harry and doing some social media stuff with it.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Jamey wants to avoid Bo Nix at Philadelphia, AJ Brown in that same game, and Jordan Mason at Cleveland, in London against Cleveland, against the best run defense in football. So where's Bo Nix in your rankings?
He's 18th. I would start all the streaming quarterbacks over him. Sam Darnold, Bryce Young.
Wow.
Who else we talk about? Tua. It's just a bad setup. You look at Baker's game, for example, against this defense, and he got lucky with the 77-yard touchdown to Mekabuka and the big play to Bucky Irving. Bo Nix can do that if you want to buy into it. He's been bad he's averaging, prior to week 4, he was averaging under 200 yards passing. And I don't think this is the right setup for him. This feels like it could be a low-scoring game, and don't expect much from Bo Nix in terms of high-end production.
Okay, the other guys were Jordan Mason at Cleveland and AJ Brown. I mean, these are just really tough matchups. We think AJ and Heath, you have Devontae Smith as a sit. So, am I really starting Jalen Hurts?
Well, Hurts is a different animal.
I get that, but yeah, I mean, we're not expecting much at all in the passing game, I guess. Go ahead, Heath.
He's QB 10 for me, so not necessarily a must start, but not somebody I would start Bryce Young over. But like you said, he probably scores a rushing touchdown, and then he just needs one passing touchdown. You just don't know if that one passing touchdown is going to go to Brown, Smith, or Goddard. I think one of those three guys probably turns out being okay, but I don't really want to start them.
Goddard missed practice on Wednesday. I don't think it's something we're really too concerned about. We'll just keep an eye on it, but something to keep in mind. All right, we're going to preview that game tomorrow, but we're obviously not super high on Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, and then there's Jordan Mason. Who are some running backs you'd start over Jordan Mason, Jamey?
When I did my first run of rankings, I actually had Xavier Scott ahead of Jordan Mason just because of the expectation of his role in the passing game versus what Mason may not be able to accomplish against his defense. So I moved him up into the high 20s. Some running backs I start over him.
Well, how about this? Would you start Michael Carter?
Yes, I was going to say Michael Carter would be one. Okay. If Rico Dowdle starts and Chuba Hubbard is out, I would start Rico Dowdle. I would start Rashad White if he starts and Bucky Irving's out. So all the replacement potential running backs would be starting over him, yes.
Okay, Heath, the other guys you're avoiding in addition to Devontae Smith are T. Higgins against the Lions and Jordan Addison in that game against Cleveland and London.
Yeah, just number 2 wide receivers in low passing games against, for 2 of them, bad matchups. And the targets for T. Higgins with Jake Browning have been disgusting. We've talked about how there's too many tight end targets, but Jamar Chase still gets a 30% target share with Jake Browning. Chase Brown still has a 12% target share with Jake Browning. It's just that T. Higgins targets have completely disappeared.
Okay. And you said they're number 2 wide receivers. You meant on their own team. They're number 3 wide receivers in your rankings, right?
They're not number 3 wide receivers in my rankings. I would sit those guys in 3 wide receiver leagues.
They're number 4.
But yes, number 2 on their own team.
All right. It's time to talk about BetMGM because you can get this boost pack, which is a really cool feature. The Pro Football Boost Pack gives you 3 ways to boost your payout on a winning bet. You just log into your BetMGM account and receive your boost pack, and then you place any pro football bet and apply one of the tokens. And make sure to bet up to the minimum stake, odds, and legs specified on the token. If your boosted bet hits, you'll score a bigger payout. From opening kickoffs to game-winning drives, this Pro Football Boost Pack is your ticket to unforgettable moments this season. So don't wait on the sidelines. Join the action with BetMGM. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. See BetMGM.com for terms, 21 plus only. Let's go through the news and notes because the running back stuff is wacky right now. But first of all, so we don't think Lamar Jackson's going to play. We're expecting Cooper Rush, but they haven't ruled Lamar Jackson out yet. So that's one AFC home game that I'm actually saving for tomorrow, Baltimore and Houston. We'll see if we get an update by then about Lamar Jackson. Jaden Daniels is going to start. Might wear a knee brace, but I imagine if you have Jaden Daniels, you're going to be starting him in your fantasy lineup. Baker Mayfield missed practice. He's got this biceps thing. He played through it last week. Dylan Gabriel starting for Cleveland. We know that. And Brock Purdy is out tonight. Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, and Juwan Jennings are out tonight. Jamie, if you want to just give me a 15-second, how do you feel about the 49ers passing game tonight?
35.5 receptions is the over-under for Christian McCaffrey. He's the only player you can start with confidence. It's going to be difficult for Mac Jones and Demarcus Robinson and Kendrick Bourne. So if you're desperate, I think you could still take a flyer on Tongas and a flyer on Robinson. But I mean, the Rams defense is great and it's not going to be pretty.
Okay. How about running back news? So this is the big stuff. Trey Benson's on IR. We did the bonus podcast yesterday. We talked about this for a while, so I'm not going to get into all of it, but Trey Benson's on IR. Bucky Irving, we didn't get this update until late last night.
You guys came out on Carter over DeMercado.
We were not really. Yes, I think we were Carter over DeMercado, but it was pretty close. I mean, I was. Heath, I forget what you said.
I think I went back three times during the 5-minute episode. But after later in the day, it started to seem more like it is going to be Carter starting, but we don't know what kind of split it's going to be.
So Adam Schefter doesn't think it's a long-term injury for Bucky Irving. He says week to week. And then Chuba Hubbard is a calf injury, and they get Miami and Dallas and the Jets in the next 3 games. And so he went into last week, Chuba Hubbard, with a calf injury, came out of it worse. Dave Canales says he needs more time to heal. I mean, this is a funny one because Dowdle would be pretty appealing, right? I mean, damn sure must start running back if Chuba were out, Jamie.
So if you're looking at it for week 5 alone, and there is no Bucky, there is no Benson, obviously, and there is no Chuba, Rico Dowdle would be my favorite of the replacement options. Clearly, there's the long-term appeal of what the Cardinals running back situation is because we know there's a timeline for Benson. So I think the way you play it is, do you need someone for this week only? It's easily Dowdle. Let's say you're in a 10-team league and waivers haven't run yet, or you can still get all these guys. I just, at this point, like, we've all been in our fab and waivers. Like, you've seen some of the crazy bids, a lot of them from Adam, on what Michael Carter has gone for. I mean, I know I in one league where we also show the fab results, I spent 20 because I'm desperate at running, like absolutely desperate. I spent $26 on Michael Carter. The next highest bid was 15. So you see that and you're like, oh wow. But then somebody also spent $31 on Darren Waller. The next highest bid was like 12. Right. But anyway, you got to get your guy if you feel you need it. I do think that there's a very appealing short-term potential. There's very appealing short-term potential for Rico Dowdle. The Cardinal situation, as Heath alluded to, I think it's going to be almost on a week-to-week thing, who they're playing and how the game flow will go. So this week it should be Carter because they probably will be playing with the lead against Titans. When they're chasing points, it's probably going to be DeMercado. Could be wrong on both accounts. And to your point about Bucky Irving, Schefter said week-to-week. Bowles said day-to-day. Like, I don't know if you saw the comment. If he's out of the boot by Friday, he's playing, is what he said.
I did not see that.
Yes. So he said if he can get out of the boot by Friday, essentially meaning, I guess, if he does the walkthrough Friday, then he'll play. At this point, you have to probably assume he's not going to play, but doesn't sound like it's a long-term situation. So,
okay,
we started Tuesday with spend fab on Sean Tucker. Then that pivoted to spend fab on the Cardinal situation. Then now it's now pivoting to spend on Rico Dowdle. I did see Rico Dowdle dropped in one of our leagues. I won't say who dropped him, but it's somebody I'm going to go try and get. Hopefully, I'm sure we'll all be competing for him too.
Yeah. I have 10 leagues that are not dynasty and they're not best ball. So 10 leagues where I'm making a lot of waiver claims. I have Michael Carter in 8 of them. And the other 2 leagues, he is still available. And at one point did have Michael Carter in one of those leagues, but dropped him for Rico Dowdle. So if Michael Carter has a big game, I will be like in Tahiti, celebrating.
It was one of those things where, I picked him up in our YOLO Dynasty League just prior to all this happening for $1 in $1,000 budget.
Yeah.
There were some situations where you're just kind of going through. I'll tell you a funny one last night with waivers. Heath's Superflex Dynasty League. We bid the same amount exactly on Michael Carter, $211. Heath's record is better. So I'm sorry, my record's better. So Heath got him by tiebreaker. And I'm like, oh crap, you know me, I'm up late. So I go to okay, I'll go pick up somebody else. At the exact same time I hit to add Isaiah Davis, it says transaction not available. Transaction not allowed. He's not available. Somebody else was up at exactly 1:47 a.m. I don't know who it was, and picked him up. So I lost
competitive league.
Oh man, I was up late last night watching the movie Heartbreakers with Jennifer Love Hewitt. You ever seen
the
that?
Yankees' potential playoff fall?
What?
It wasn't the Yankees' eventual playoff loss?
No, that's tonight. Heartbreakers is a pretty good movie. I was surprised. All right, more news. Brashard Smith, according to Dan Graziano of ESPN, expected to have more involvement in the Chiefs' backfield. And Braylon Allen's knee injury is pretty serious, which is why Jamey picked up Isaiah Davis. Wide receiver, I already told you, Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings.
Tried to pick up Isaiah Davis.
Oh, that's right. Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings are out tonight. Deebo Samuel missed practice with a heel injury. Terry McLaurin didn't practice. We're expecting Deebo. We're not expecting McLaurin at this point. Alec Pierce practiced in full. Calvin Ridley missed practice. Cedric Tillman's on IR. Tight end news. Dallas Goedert missed practice with a knee injury. Not panicking yet on that. Brock Bowers was limited, which I was disappointed because he was practicing in full last week, but limited session for Bowers. Will Dissly was limited, which if he plays, that means Aranda Gadsden might not play as much. Jawan Johnson missed practice with an ankle injury. Foster Morrow was limited. I am curious.
So was Taysom Hill, right?
Was he?
He was at practice.
Okay. Yeah, so this could be bad news for Jawan Johnson. I mean, he's been really good, so hopefully they just keep riding with him, but it's something you should at least be aware of. And I'm going to end it there with the news and notes, and we're going to take a break and come back with one question for each game after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, let's go to one question for each game. Detroit is at Cincinnati.
Wait, before you go there, you're still going to do a game of the week tomorrow, right?
It's going to be the same one?
No,
I don't think so. I think one game of the week. He's got to at least have the fear in his heart that I could do it on a Wednesday. I could do it on a Tuesday. Maybe I'll do it Sunday night when he's like, well, let's see who they're playing next week. And then bam, game of the week. I got to be able to keep him on his toes.
Okay.
All right. Detroit at Cincinnati. After Jahmyr Gibbs, Heath, rank the running backs and wide receivers in this game. Sorry, not St. Brown either.
Okay, so I will go Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, David Montgomery, Jamison Williams, T. Higgins.
Oh, I forgot about him. Okay. Jamey, how about you?
Jamar Chase, skip a little bit. David Montgomery, skip a lot. Chase Brown, skip a little bit. T. Higgins.
And then Jamison Williams?
Skip a little bit more. Jamison Williams.
Okay, so you guys didn't quite agree.
You want Laporta too or no?
No, said running backs and wide receivers. You didn't quite agree there because Heath is higher on Brown than Montgomery. Jamey prefers Montgomery. Heath prefers J-Mo to Higgins. Jamey prefers Higgins to J-Mo. Minnesota at Cleveland. Over under 8 PPR fantasy points for Jordan Mason.
Over.
Under.
All right, Heath, 9 PPR fantasy points.
I'll go over.
15. No, 10.
Between 10 and 11.
Okay. Las Vegas is at the Colts. Are you more confident in Jacoby Myers or Daniel Jones?
That's a great question.
Jacoby Myers.
More confident in Daniel Jones.
Okay. Jacoby Myers, I think, has a pretty good matchup. The Colts are missing their slot corner. They've struggled even before the Rams game. They struggled against slot receivers, and Myers has a career high slot rate so far this year. So we'll see.
It's
Washington.
not a negative on Myers, by the way.
Right. So you just are confident in Daniel Jones.
Yes.
All
Back home.
Yeah, Washington's at the Chargers. Ladd McConkey or Keenan Allen?
Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen.
Kansas City's at Jacksonville. Brenton Strange or Travis Kelce?
Kelsey.
I have them very, very close. I will say Kelsey by a hair.
I've mentioned 3 wide receivers so far: Jacoby Myers, Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen. How many of those 3 would you start over Brian Thomas Jr.?
All 3.
New England's at Buffalo. Who's the best wide receiver in this game? And bonus question, would you start a Patriots running back?
Stephon Diggs, and no.
I think I have Keon Coleman the highest.
Interesting. Okay. You think this is going to be a competitive game, Patriots-Bills?
I do. I almost picked the Patriots to cover, but they send us the odds for our pick 'em page, expert picks, whatever they call it. The line changed, so we had it at 8.5, and then it dropped to 7.5.
Okay.
It's really because one of the things that I track is like in a certain way pass versus run defense. And it's a really interesting matchup because the Bills have been so good against the pass and so bad against the run.
Yeah.
And the Patriots have been the opposite.
As an offense or as a defense?
Defense.
Right.
To be fair, after facing Lamar Jackson, they faced Justin Fields, who got banged up in the game, Tua Tagovailoa, and Spencer Rattler.
But they destroyed Justin Fields. He played most of that.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but even so, like to say, like I wonder how legit their pass defense is when they face that group of quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's interesting. The Bills are number 1 in time of possession. So they have, I believe, seen the fewest plays in the NFL, or maybe the second.
Well, and that's the other thing is like all the Bills want to do is run the football and control the clock. And that's the one thing that the Patriots defense has been really good at stopping.
Yeah. And I will see. I want to see if the Patriots are, and I mean pun intended here because it's Sunday night, if they're ready for prime time. It's be a big game. Dallas is at the Jets. Start or sit, Dak Prescott?
Start.
Borderline start, but I am a little bit lower on him. I think it'll be interesting to see what the pass volume is and what the George Pickens Sauce Gardner matchup's like.
Yeah, I don't think no quarterback has thrown more than 30 passes against the Jets, and Dak is regularly throwing more than 40. So, all right, we'll get into that game later. Let's go to we're going to break it down now. Detroit at Cincinnati is our first game. Stat of the game number 1, courtesy of Jamey. You brought this up last time or 2 weeks ago when we talked about David Montgomery. He's only gone consecutive regular season games without a touchdown once in his Detroit tenure. David Montgomery is coming off the worst game of his career. 1.2 PPR fantasy points. Cincinnati has allowed 11.5 or more PPR fantasy points to multiple running backs in the same game twice already in 4 games. So if I know Jamey, I don't even know the ranking of David Montgomery. I feel like he likes David Montgomery this week. Am I right?
Almost made him the start of the week.
Really?
Started in too many leagues. Yeah, it's a great setup. You're looking at this run defense, which is awful. Like you said, typically when he's not scored, which is, I would say for him, it's struggling. They find a way to get him into the end zone. So you can't start him with the expectation of he's going to catch X amount of passes. That's just not who he is. So this could be the Baltimore game all over again for him. Not to that extreme, but just feed him and let him go to work. Like this is the perfect setup for David Montgomery.
I think from a projection standpoint, the challenge is like the Baltimore game was incredible, but it wasn't really a feed him game. He had 12 rush attempts, and that's his season high, and he has 1 target in 3 games in a row.
Yeah, I know. Right? It's tricky. The fact that he hasn't had more than 12 carries in a game is wild so far for David Montgomery. So Heath, you said you like Chase Brown better, and I'll say that the Lions have actually given up a rushing touchdown to a running back in all 4 games this year. But you like Chase Brown a little better?
I do, and it's entirely a PPR thing. I think obviously David Montgomery's rushing average is going to be better than Chase Brown's, but we have seen, I think he had a 5-target game with Jake Browning, and he's got a 12% target share, and they're probably going to throw a lot of passes to the Bengals. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have 4 or 5 catches from Chase Brown.
I hope that's the case because he's been 14 total touches or less each of the last 2 games.
What did he have last? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're right. Just looking at last week was 10 carries for 40 yards and 3 catches for 31 yards. So that was 10.1 fantasy points at Denver, which was a big improvement over the previous two weeks. At least he has 7 catches in his last 2 games, as we said. So that's Chase Brown. I mean, the
touches just haven't been the biggest difference between the 2 guys.
So you're confident in Gibbs. You're confident in St. Brown. Jamey sounds confident in David Montgomery. Who else in this game are you confident in?
I think it's a good game for Jared Goff. I know outdoors we don't typically love him, but this Bengals defense is terrible. So the concern would be is that the run game is too dominant and that he doesn't have the need to throw. But they also, in Dan Campbell's tenure, like they have these get right games. They usually happen in their building. So you come off the disappointing performance across the board against Green Bay, and then they just throw everything that they wanted to at the Bears. Like they could do something similar here. So yeah, the one concern would be is I will say this: if there's a guy that gets right in the passing game, it's Sam Laporta. The Bengals are terrible against tight ends. He's yet to find the end zone. He's been bad for the last 3 games. Like this could be one of those 3 for 23 and 2 touchdowns, like the Darren Waller stat line.
I think Dave would, if he was here, would call it maybe a Joe Boo week for Sam Laporta. He's still a top 6 tight end for me this week because of the matchup and the high projected score and the hope for a touchdown. But if he's 3 for 25 with 0 touchdowns, then we're gonna have to have a conversation.
Yep.
So in terms of Chase, you guys seem pretty down on AJ Brown and Brian Thomas Jr. How does Chase compare to those guys?
I'm starting him.
I mean, you got banged up secondary for Detroit. You have him complaining. You have Zach Taylor having to defend Jake Browning. Like if they're not sitting there in the meeting rooms just saying, throw it to him as much as possible. If you throw a pick, I don't care at this point. Like you got to save your job. You have to save my job. We have to make him happy. Like those things have to be said. Like just feed the kid.
Okay. So I'm assuming you guys would start like a George Pickens over Jamar Chase, but you'd have to basically be completely loaded at wide receiver to sit Jamar Chase. Is that fair?
Yes.
Very.
Okay.
Very loaded.
And then Jamison Williams. So if you like Goff and the Bengals stink, is this going to be the week for Jamison Williams?
When you say the week for Jamison Williams, do you mean like what he did against the Bears or like a big breakout game with 5+ catches, 100+ yards, and a touchdown?
Well, he
like
had
what version of Jamison Williams are you talking? This year's best?
80 yards and a touchdown.
I mean,
if he has a 70-yard touchdown.
Yeah, I think you're looking at a number 3 boom bust receiver on a weekly basis, and there's been 1 boom and 3 busts.
I think you should bring back the Magic 8 Ball.
Oh.
I think Magic 8 Ball that's Jamison Williams.
It's pretty amazing that
Jamison Williams.
I'll finish.
Unlikely.
It's pretty amazing that you have your mixing board that you use on a daily basis, and you don't know which button is which half the time. But you have your Magic 8 Ball right in front of you that you haven't touched since Gabe Davis basically retired.
Yeah.
Did
Magic 8 Ball.
True or false? The Magic 8 Ball was responsible for the Michael Carter fab. You just said, what percentage should I put on Michael Carter? 25%. Okay.
Yeah, actually, it didn't even. You're supposed to ask it yes or no answers, but yes or no question. But I just asked it, how much fab should I spend? And it said 35% of your budget. I didn't spend that quite that much, but all right. So Jamo's a number 3 receiver for you guys. Heath has him 36, Jamey 33rd. At least that was as of yesterday. Remember, he leads all wide receivers in average route depth. He's just going downfield a ton. So Michael Carter or Jamison Williams?
Carter.
Yeah, it's Carter.
Okay. How about Darius Slayton at the Saints or Jamison Williams?
I'll take Slayton and the potential.
I have them back to back. I would probably go Jamey.
And then Jamey likes Williams better than Higgins, and Heath likes Higgins better than Williams, right?
No, I like Williams
It's the
better
other
than
way around.
Higgins.
I'm
and
sorry.
Jamey likes Higgins better than Williams. But
Yeah.
Why do you like Higgins better than Williams?
I'm hoping that the injuries in the secondary and Jake Browning basically playing for his career.
A lot of injuries, but the good news was Terrion Arnold, cornerback, was limited yesterday. Kirby Joseph, a safety, and DJ Reed, a cornerback, did not practice. So they are a little banged up, but hopefully a limited practice for Terrion Arnold is a good sign. But we are hopeful that they can take advantage of this beat up secondary here. Start Laporta, Chase Brown, 24th for Jamey, 17th for Heath. Kind of talked about him. I guess we can do some Chase Brown ors, and then we will move on.
I put Michael Carter ahead of him, so he's outside the top 24.
All right. Chase Brown or Tony Pollard at the Cardinals?
Pollard for me.
I've got Chase Brown one spot higher, but Spider-Man meme.
Chase Brown or Alvin Kamara against the Giants?
Kamara.
All
right. DST, Detroit's DST is top 6 for everyone. Cincinnati allows the most fantasy points to DSTs. Let's go to our London game. Minnesota's at Cleveland. Stat of the game already gave you yesterday. It was among 124 qualified college quarterbacks in 2024. Dylan Gabriel ranked 122nd in air yards per pass attempt.
Man, I would love it. And maybe they'll do it after the bye. But let's just kick Jerome Ford out of here. Move Dylan Sampson into the pass catching running back role. Make Isaiah Bond the number 1 wide receiver. Make Harold Fannin the they kind of already did that. The number 1 tight end. Just play the kids for a month and see what happens.
That would be fun. I mean, it looks like a solid draft class. So for the Cleveland side of it, is there anyone, including Quinshon Judkins, that you can trust this week, Heath?
I'm starting Quinshon Judkins as pretty much a must-start running back. He's been awesome. I think we'll see the rush rate go up for the Browns. I don't think Carson Wentz and the Vikings offense is going to put Cleveland into a must-pass situation. This is going to be, in my opinion, a very competitive game. Not maybe a very high-scoring game, but very close. And so 20-plus touches for Judkins, top 12 running back.
Okay. So Chase Brown and David Montgomery.
Don't even think about those guys over Judkins for me.
Okay. Jamey, agree?
100%.
Okay. I mean, this game sucks for fantasy purposes, right? I think you're going to start Justin Jefferson. We've already talked about Jordan Mason. This is just a brutal matchup. They've held Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, and David Montgomery to 43 or fewer rushing yards. That's Cleveland. And he's not super involved in the passing game, so Mason's going to be tough to trust. Could be a low pass attempt game for Wentz. So how do we feel about Hawkinson and Addison, Jamey?
Can't trust them. Addison, you got lucky last week with the 81-yard reception on busted coverage. And so I think they already kind of gave us the blueprint of how they want to play. They did this against the Bears in week 1. It was kind of just ball control and wait out the other team making mistakes. And that's exactly what Caleb Williams did in the end.
Yep.
And this is a much worse situation because you have a less talented quarterback, a less talented offense. And so this is Brian Flores go to work, and go harass the hell out of this, rookie and make him poop his pants. And I'm sure he will, because this defense is scary when they're at their best.
He doesn't. It'd be really fortunate, especially playing for the Browns.
To the way that Dylan Gabriel will play, we could get a lot of receptions for Jerry Jeudy. We could get a lot of receptions for one, if not both, tight ends, because it's going to be ball out quick. They're going to move the pocket around a lot, and he's going to lean on these guys, especially with Tillman not there. So Isaiah Bond may be a sneaky play if you're stuck, but again, it just feels like this is an avoid game for everybody but Judkins.
On that side of the ball, and basically an avoid game for everybody but Jefferson?
I would. I mean, again, trusting Mason against this defense, he could fall into the end zone. They could have the ball enough that, they're just grinding out yards. And the same thing, he's clearly not Jahmyr Gibbs, but, Gibbs was able to accomplish that last week. But Montgomery and Jameson and Jordan Mason feel like the same player. Derrick Henry's the same type of player. No role in the passing game, not going to help you unless they score at this point, Henry, at least against this defense. And so when they don't, it's disappointing. Like, look what Chase Brown's stat line was. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I don't want to start. Honestly, we've talked about what a bad week it is at wide receiver, but there's like 17 running backs that I want to start.
And
I think it's better than that, though.
Michael Carter's not in that for you.
Michael, if you like Michael Carter, if you like David Montgomery because of the matchup, if Jamey loves Woody Marks, but there's a lot of guys that are either getting a bunch of volume and either terribly inefficient or facing a bad matchup or both, or that are in complete timeshares. I saw Adam later today. We're going to be on HQ, and you're talking about sitting Ken Walker. He's in the middle of that group with you're probably going to get half of the running back carries, and you hope you break a long one. There's probably 10 running backs from 18 to 28 for me that I don't really want to start, but I think Mason's going to have a really low efficiency game and probably get a bunch of carries because the Browns aren't going to be able to score either. And you hope he scores a touchdown.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'd like to sit Ken Walker if I could. Tough matchup and doesn't get the goal line work, but I'd start him over Jordan Mason and I'd start him over Chase Brown. I think I'd start David Montgomery over Ken Walker because I just think he's got a much better chance to score a touchdown.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said.
And all right, last stuff on this game. We talked about T. Higgins and Jamison Williams. We're not super jazzed to start those guys. Would you start any wide receiver in this game other than Justin Jefferson over Jamison Williams or T. Higgins?
Full PPR, I'd start Judy over them.
Yeah, I'd start Judy over Williams. Probably makes sense to start him over T. Higgins in PPR. This is the opportunity that he needs, and I don't know if you caught the press conference yesterday. Like, Dylan Gabriel was very high on Judy.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, should be. A couple questions from the chat. Charbonnet or Jordan Mason?
I think I have them back to back. I think I moved Mason just ahead of Charbonnet. They're the same type of player. Need a touchdown.
Mason for me.
Harold Fannin Jr. or Darren Waller?
Waller.
It's Waller, but like Jamey said, this could be the Fannin game. Be a lot of 4-yard targets.
Who do you have, Hawkinson or Fannin?
I have Fannin, but neither one's top 12.
I have Hawkinson just because of the mess of the two tight ends.
These guys like Tommy Tremble, Brenton Strange. Jamey likes Mason Taylor better than Hawkinson. Some guys you can go get off waivers. And I think Darren, I don't know if I said Waller, but all right, that's it for this game. Which DST do you like better?
The Vikings.
Whichever one you already have on your roster. They're not available on the waiver wire.
Okay. Let's take a break. And no, you know what? Let's squeeze in another game here. Las Vegas is at Indianapolis. Here's the fingers crossed. Let's hope this matters stat of the game. The Colts allow the third most receiving yards to slot wide receivers. And even before the Rams game where they got destroyed by slot wide receivers, including an 88-yard touchdown from Tutu Atwell, they were 20th in yards allowed to slot receivers, and they're missing their slot cornerback, Kenny Moore. So Jacoby Myers, highest slot rate of his career, about 64%. I'm keeping my fingers crossed and hoping that matters for Jacoby Myers. Did he crack your top 24?
Oh, yeah.
Most weeks, yeah.
All right, well, he's been pretty garbage the last couple of weeks, right?
I think you just look at 7 targets in a game where Geno Smith threw 21 times. Like, clearly they want to get him going, and the matchup's great.
Okay. We're going to sit Geno Smith?
I would.
Yeah, I don't want to start him, but I do have him ahead of Bo Nix.
Okay. Ashton Genty is a start. Be interesting. Another matchup on paper that looks good. 4.57 yards per carry allowed to running backs for the Colts. Remember, his first 3 matchups were tough. Then the Bears were awful and he crushed them. But he's got an opportunity here. So start Genty, start Myers, Trey Tucker. Any interest? Trey Tucker or Jordan Addison, Jamison Williams, T. Higgins. What do you think?
I think there's more upside with the other guys besides Tucker because of what happened last week. I do think the concern would be is that they're scared of Geno Smith, and Genty finally looked like the guy they drafted. And it's going to be a lot of running and a little bit of throwing. And if they're not chasing points to a high extent, I don't think the Colts are going to run away from them. Then we're going to get a lot of Ashton Genty and not as many target opportunities for the other guys besides Bowers and Myers.
I've got Tucker just ahead of those guys, but he's just a boom bust number 3 like the rest of them. It's just personal preference.
All right, start Brock Bowers. Although if you have Jake Ferguson, you can start Jake Ferguson over Brock Bowers. That's pretty much it. Trey McBride and Ferguson are ranked ahead of Bowers, and that is it. All right, starter sit Daniel Jones. Jamey has him, last I checked, 9th. Let me double check here. 9th for Jamey. He's 8th for Dave, and he's 13th for Heath. So, Heath, you're the low guy, but still like Daniel Jones. So, why are the optimism this week?
I mean, he's back at home. He was awesome at home the first 2 weeks, and hopefully he's awesome again. The reason I'm a little bit lower on him is just the same thing we talked about last week. It's one passing touchdown every week. He's always, and he'll probably have a good passing touchdown game at some point this year, but he's always been a very low pass touchdown guy. 3.3% touchdown rate this year, 3.1% touchdown rate for his career. And I'm just a little bit nervous about the rushing with John. I mean, we already know Jonathan Taylor is going to get some carries inside the 5. Tyler Warren got 2 last week, and Daniel Jones has had fewer rush attempts every game this year, 7, 6, 4, 1 last week. If they have 2 other guys that can run inside the 5 and they're so happy with what he's doing as a passer, it seems like they're not as intent on using him as a rusher as they have.
Jamey, you want to make the case a little bit higher, number 9 for Daniel Jones. So you have him ahead of Baker Mayfield, for example. You have him ahead of Jared Goff, Dak Prescott. That is not the case. Well, Heath has him ahead of Prescott, but not Goff or Mayfield. So go ahead on Daniel Jones.
All those quarterbacks you mentioned feel like they're in that 20 to 22 point range. I don't think there's a huge, 30-point game coming from Jones like we saw in week 1 against Miami. I just don't really buy this Raiders defense. I know they played well last week against Caleb Williams, but we also saw a similar situation where Marcus Mariota had a big game against this defense. So Jones at home, I think he's played well. Last week was the first time really he showed some of the flaws that we, saw from him with the Giants. But I think a lot of that had to do with the defense that he was facing. So I'll buy back into him in this matchup. Again, not with the expectation of a monster performance, but a good, solid, low-end number 1 QB. Remember, if he gets that touchdown from Adonai Mitchell, we're looking at an 18-point per game day. And that would have made his overall performance from a fantasy production standpoint look a lot better for 3 of the first 4 games.
You want to this is an amazing Azer stat. This is a theoretical Azer stat. So Daniel Jones scored about 12 points last week. And you're saying if he had gotten that touchdown from Mitchell, who fumbled going into the end zone, that's 18. I'm going to say he would have scored 20 because he would not have thrown that interception. They wouldn't have been trailing. He wouldn't have thrown that interception on the last possession of the game where they were desperate. So I'm going to give Daniel Jones a 20-point game against the Rams. So
I'm going to say that Kyren Williams would have had a better game if no. Sorry.
Yeah, you can't because it doesn't make sense. My argument is perfect. It's airtight. So, all right, that's Daniel Jones.
Your argument is better than the trade you made.
It's funny you say that, Jamey. I'm going to share my screen here, and let's go ahead and put this Twitter poll up. I didn't say what side I was on. I just said, which side do you prefer? Jacobs and Devontae Adams or Genty and Jamar Chase? And wouldn't you know it, 437 votes, 65%. That's a pretty big gap there. 65% say Jacobs and Devontae Adams over Genty and Jamar Chase, but not Jamey. Jamey's in the 35%.
You left out Blake Corum. I mean, that's the real key to all of it.
Corum's a nice, I'm thinking probably gonna have to drop Corum, but Corum's a nice guy to have. But I Twitter thinks I'm winning. So
by the way, I really shouldn't comment because in that league, waivers ran. Nobody picked up Cooper Rush. Nobody in a super flex league, which is kind of amazing. I now have 6 quarterbacks on my roster.
And you dropped Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. I might regret that.
Thomas made a really good point in the private chat. Like, these people who are voting for your side also made the choice to follow you on social media.
They don't know what side I took. They don't know. They don't know it. All right, start Jonathan Taylor. You guys love Michael Pittman this week? Like Michael Pittman?
Love.
He's a top 20 wide receiver.
The Raiders
had one bad game this year. It was against the Broncos.
Yeah, and he should have had a touchdown in that game. The Raiders have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers. How about this? 5 wide receivers have scored 14.6 or more fantasy points against the Raiders, and none of them had more than 8 targets. So they're just bad against receivers. Start Tyler Warren. What did we miss here? I don't think we missed anything. I think we're good. How about some of the running? First of all, Jacoby Myers or Michael Pittman? Who do you like better?
Pittman.
Jacoby.
See if we have any questions in the chat, but we'll get to that in a minute. But okay, how about would you start any of the backup running backs who could become starters this week? So I'll even include Rashad White, Sean Tucker, Michael Carter, Amari DiMercado, and Rico Dowdle. Any of those 5 over the 2 wide receivers in this game, Pittman and Myers.
Maybe Dowdle if he starts.
Not in PPR.
Okay. From the chat, Kyler Murray or Daniel Jones?
Kyler.
Josh Downs or Jordan Addison?
Addison.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. All right. And do you like the Colts DST?
Not really.
They're a good bet if you're betting against Geno, which has obviously been a good bet.
Geno Smith has been really good after 3 interception games this year.
He's actually his best games have come on the road.
All 3 of his interceptions, by the way, were intended for Jacoby Myers last week.
2 of them were 2 of the worst decisions I've ever seen.
Yeah, this on repeat. Okay, let's take a break and come back with Washington at the Chargers after this. We're back here on Fantasy Football Today. One of the stats that I've been looking at more is the easy catches, right? The catches at or behind the line of scrimmage. And are wide receivers getting any of those? Well, here's where the Chargers wide receivers are in that category. Targets at or behind the line of scrimmage. Quentin Johnson has 3. Keenan Allen has 1. Ladd McConkey has 0. So Ladd McConkey has no target, no wide receiver screens or anything like that. No end zone targets, no green zone targets, 1 red zone target all year. He is, we talk about high value touches for running backs. Well, Ladd McConkey's not getting high value opportunities at wide receiver. It's very frustrating. So on that note, Heath, your thoughts on Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey, as I'm sure Quentin Johnson is a must start at this point. But what about the other guys?
I really think that I'm probably I hope I don't have all 3 Chargers wide receivers on the same team. But this week, I'm probably starting any Chargers wide receiver that I have. I don't really think that the red zone targets through 4 weeks is quite a big enough sample for me to say it's going to be that way all year long. I assume there will be a get right game for Ladd McConkey at some point. They've got an implied total of 26, which is one of the higher ones on the slate. I think it's a good week to go back to Ladd McConkey. Nobody should probably gone away from him yet.
And Keenan Allen is close.
Start him.
Okay. This could be a great game for fantasy. The total is 48, so that's a high number, and we're quite hopeful here. Hampton is an easy start. Justin Herbert, Jamey, start or sit, coming off 2. He's scored about 31 points in his last 2 games at Denver and at the Giants.
1, you could have probably expected him to struggle a little bit. 1, you probably thought, okay, he should destroy the Giants, and he didn't. The only concern would be is the offensive line starting to become an issue for him, because he's missing a lot of protection right now, and it's coinciding with the run game getting going. And so, which I know might not add up a little bit, because if the offensive line is falling apart, why is the run game getting going? Because the interior of the offensive line is playing well, and the way that they're scheming up things for Hampton are much better right now than they're protecting Herbert. But I think it's just the case of the defense that he's facing. 2 games ago gave up 289 and 3 touchdowns to Geno Smith. There's chances here, like you said, for this game to become now a high scoring affair because of Jane Daniels. So he's a top 10 quarterback. He's just ahead of the guys you listed previously. So Daniel Jones and Baker and those guys. Like he's like QB7 or QB8. Like I would much rather start Justin Fields this week than Justin Herbert.
Heath, you got Herbert second.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, a big number. They've scored 7 of their 9 touchdowns through the air this year. I'm not scared of the Commanders' pass defense. I think he's one of the best starts you can have.
Okay. I'm not scared of their pass defense. I'm a little scared of their pass rush because their backup left tackle was horrible last week. And the Giants have a very good stable of pass rushers. I don't think the Commanders have quite that, but I think they're about 10th in pressure rate. So I think that's probably why Jamey's the lowest at 8th. Jamey 8th, Dave 4th on Herbert, Heath 2nd on Justin Herbert. So Quentin Johnston, yes.
He's also stopped running lately.
Herbert's one of those guys that I don't think you're going to get consistent rushing from him.
Agreed. But that certainly boosted his numbers the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, but he could go out there and have 25 rushing yards, any week. That's the Chargers, basically. We're not starting Arondé Gadsden. So let's go over to the Commanders. Any hesitation, Jamey, to start Jaden Daniels?
No.
Okay. You got him. You got to start him. Can you trust a Commanders running back?
No.
Commanders running back or Michael Carter?
Carter and DeMercado over Commanders running back.
That was my next question. If you had to pick,
and that would be White and Sean Tucker over a Commanders running back if Bucky's out.
If you had to pick one Commanders running back, who would it be?
It's got to be Chris Rodriguez at this point. Yeah,
I'd still go Bill. I think he could break one long run. I guess Chris Rodriguez can too, but I'd go Bill.
If you go on X and you just look at what fantasy analysts have to say about Corey Cross-Gamera, at least the ones that keep showing up in my feed, very, very positive stuff. His advanced metrics are really good. His tape looks really good. He really can make guys miss. I've been extremely impressed.
It's him and Bashal Tutin that there's just a constant feed of positive feedback for currently backup running backs.
Right, but Cross-Gamera, is getting the same amount of carries basically as Chris Rodriguez. Bashal Tutin is buried right now behind a guy who's playing great. I shouldn't say buried, but okay. All I'm saying is I'm sure Jamey didn't want to drop Ja'Cory Cross-Gamera. Don't drop him if you can avoid it.
Oh, no. That was not an indictment on dropping, Cross-Gamera. I hope his time is coming. To your point, Rodriguez did have a 48-yard run last week. They're just not trusting any of them to be the lead guy, which I don't understand, why you wouldn't try and, at least for a half, keep rotating these guys. It takes them out of a rhythm. Rodriguez gets you the 48-yard run at the end of the first quarter and finishes with just shy of 60 yards rushing, right?
Yeah, it's almost like they take turns.
So, Adam, in our Super Flex League, oddly enough, you got Michael Carter off the waiver wire for probably 20% of your budget. On that team, you have Javonte Williams, Kyron Williams, and Woody Marks. So there's no chance you're going to start with Michael Carter.
And
Are you going to put in a claim for Ja'Cory Cross-Gamera dropping Michael Carter?
No, I don't think so. I am actually attempting to trade Michael Carter and Tucker Kraft to get a tight end, but I've been rebuffed 3 times already.
So that's my worst team.
I do need a quarterback. Yes, 100%.
I got 6 of them.
Okay, but yours all suck. So do mine.
But mine are actually playing though.
Debo,
CJ Stroud, Cam Ward, and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. I'm loaded everywhere else though. And I have AJ Brown and Jamar Chase on that team. So I could have gotten away with it. Anyway, Debo Samuel, easy start, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Debo or Chase? Jamar Chase or Debo?
I'm going Chase.
Chase, but they're close.
Debo Samuel or Pittman?
Pittman.
Ooh, I have those guys probably back to back. They're both high-end wide receiver 2s. I will go Pittman.
How does Zach Ertz stack up amongst the streaming tight ends, the Brenton Stranges and Darren Wallers and Tommy Trembles of the world?
I gave him a boost with Daniels back. So he was tight end 18 for me prior to the Daniels news, and now he's right around 12.
Yeah, he's 12 for me. He's behind most of those names you said, but he's the same guy.
Okay. You want to hear a fantasy dilemma?
Sure.
Okay. So Zach Ertz is available. I have, never mind. I was only going to bring it up because it's, would you take a 0 at tight end to avoid dropping a player that you really want to keep? So, for example, I have Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. I don't want to drop Blake Corum, but I might have to pick up a tight end. do you take the 0 and just play Tucker Kraft, or do you drop the handcuff that you really like? Whatever. We don't have to talk about that. Sorry, I didn't mean to be self-indulgent there. Kansas City's at
Oh,
Jackson.
that's a great question.
Why don't you just drop Isaiah Pacheco?
Yeah, I could do that too.
I mean, you've got 6 running backs on the team.
You know what? I think I am going to drop Pacheco.
Yeah, drop Pacheco for Zach Ertz.
But then I still need to drop someone. I'm still going to be over the roster limit. Oh, I need to make a trade. Kansas City's at Jacksonville.
I got quarterbacks.
Wait. You're over the roster limit in that league?
Because I made a 3-for-2 trade.
Oh, who's the commissioner of that league? I'm going to go just drop your play. I'm dropping one of your players.
So, yeah, you can't make a trade to get out of an illegal roster. You got to drop somebody before you make a trade.
True. I'm going to go to your roster right now and drop whoever I want.
Is that
you can't be making a trade right now. That's exactly what you got on to Jamey for.
Yep.
Well, no, because what Jamey was a little bit different.
You have an illegal roster,
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to make a 2-for-1 trade to get out of that illegal roster.
All right, fine. I'll drop someone. That's fine. Kansas City's at Jacksonville. Feels a little different to me, to be honest with you.
Because you're doing it.
No, because I gave Jamey like a week, and he wouldn't listen to me. Kansas City at Jacksonville, stat of the game.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Heath. I appreciate that.
Kind of similar. I don't appreciate that. I hate you, Heath. Similar to what we said about Woody Marks last week. We said stat of the game. They traded up. They traded a 3rd-round pick to move into the 4th round to draft Woody Marks. Just want to remind everyone, Brenton Strange.
These are so great.
Brenton Strange was a 2nd-round pick in 2023. He's currently 9th in yards per route run among 24 tight ends with 15 or more targets, just ahead of Trey McBride. So maybe this is your chance to pick up Brenton Strange. He's been good in 3 or 4 games. Okay. Why so high on Patrick Mahomes? I'll drop someone. Enough. Enough. Okay. Patrick Mahomes is top 4 for all of you.
Mailbag on Friday to call you out on this one.
I'm sorry. I was a little distracted. Patrick Mahomes is top 4. Yes.
Yeah, top 2 for me.
I don't think we have to get into it, but you have him ahead of Jaden Daniels, which is interesting. But is that just because of the knee for Daniels?
Yeah. And the matchup.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, the Jaguars' pass defense has been pretty good. 9th in yards per attempt. They're 15th against quarterbacks. Only the Bengals quarterbacks have scored more than 20 fantasy points against them, but the others are Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Brock Purdy.
And Purdy was way off in that game.
He was. Which running back do you prefer for the Chiefs, and when would you start him?
Pacheco and no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think
that have yet to allow a rushing touchdown this season. Can you name them?
What's that?
3 teams yet to allow a rushing touchdown to a running back this season. Can you name them?
The Jaguars.
That's one.
Yes, the Raiders.
That's not correct.
No, I can't. I remember seeing
the Patriots.
That's not correct.
Okay.
Who?
Is the Jaguars, the Seahawks, and the Rams.
Jaguars, Seahawks, Rams. Okay. Michael Carter, here we come. Oh, wait, no. They're not playing the Seahawks. That was last week. I'm very much thrown off by what's the events of
You're cheating? Yeah.
No, because I didn't make a I didn't add a player and go, I know it's that I can't add a player to go over the roster. Okay, this is different. Heath, I'm going to strip you of your friggin'
I think it's important. You didn't cheat. You intended on cheating. You were planning to cheat. You discussed your plans to cheat on a podcast, but I don't think you committed cheating yet.
Okay, I didn't cheat. Right. I didn't cheat when I made the trade to go over the roster limit.
Correct. You just have to drop somebody. You can't trade out of that.
Oh, you know what? Fine. I accept that. This is really something that's never come up before. But
no, it came up exactly like 2 months ago with Jamey.
Because Jamey added a player which was breaking the rules. You cannot add a player to go over your roster limit. And
so you can trade for a player to go over your roster limit?
Yes, you can. Right. You can. Yes. You just have to make a transaction.
So just so I'm clear here.
Yeah.
Can go over the roster limit in one way. Can't go over the roster limit in another way.
That doesn't seem consistent.
Yes, absolutely. You can. Yes, 100%. Okay, because when you make an ad drop right there on the spot, you can add a, you can add and drop.
And you were obviously prevented from dropping anyone since you made your trade.
You could have made
it wasn't possible.
You could have made a 3-for-3 trade. knowing that you had a roster limits to.
Like you made the trade and then immediately sent me an offer when instead of sending that offer, you could have just dropped someone right when you sent the offer.
Exactly the same thing.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
And I'm learning my lesson here, but
Okay.
it's much not what Jamey did. Jamey did something criminal. Xavier Worthy. I love Xavier Worthy this week.
Azer statted this roster move.
Xavier Worthy scored 17 fantasy points on 59% of the snaps. How can you get Xavier Worthy out of your lineup at this point? I would start him.
Say, go. Just going back to the Chiefs running back situations. Dan Graziano of ESPN said that they're talking about giving Brashard Smith.
I already said that, Buster.
I wasn't listening to you.
There were multiple leagues where I saw Michael Carter go for 20% and Amari DeMarcado go for 15% and a little higher than I had bid. And I got Brashard Smith for $1 or $2, and I'm very happy about those leagues. I think that's a great, like, just sit him on the end of your bench and see. Maybe it won't. Maybe we'll be dropping him in a couple of weeks, but that's the type of guy you want to have at the end of the bench.
I would start Xavier Worthy over Jamar Chase. I bet you guys would not.
No. But
everyone's going to start Xavier Worthy. I mentioned the Brashard Smith thing a while ago during the news and notes, not during this show. For Jacksonville.
I like this, Jonah. That's a great comment.
Oh, okay. Let's ask the Magic 8 Ball if Adam cheated. I mean, I think I kind of did, to be honest. But did I cheat? Can't say now. All right. Let's try. Did I cheat, Magic 8 Ball? Unlikely. All right. I like this guy. Sit Trevor Lawrence. We already talked about Kelsey versus Strange. But I think you guys said Kelsey, right?
Slightly.
Brian Thomas Jr., ETN's top 15. Start Travis Etienne. The Chiefs are giving up 5.2 yards per carry to running backs right now. Where are you guys on Brian Thomas Jr.?
A little misleading.
I mean, the only running back they've done really well against was Hampton in week 1.
Yes, but they're giving up that yards per carry because Justice Hill had 3 carries for 76 yards.
And Cam Scadaboo averaged 6 yards per carry. And Derrick Henry had 8 for 42, which is over 5 per carry. So it's really just been Hampton that struggled. That was week 1. However, I, for some reason, also feel like their run defense is better than what it is on paper. But how are we feeling about Brian Thomas Jr. this week?
There were steps in the right direction last week. Hopefully that continues. Start in 3 receiver leagues, sit in 2 receiver leagues.
Yep. High-end wide receiver 3.
Okay. Michael Carter or Brian Thomas Jr.?
I'll take Carter in non-PPR for sure, and probably in all formats.
I will take Carter in non-PPR and Thomas and everything else.
What about DeMarcado?
Thomas.
Braylon Allen now on injured reserve.
Okay. And Brenton Strange or Darren Waller?
Waller.
Strange
or Kincaid?
Strange.
Okay, very different there.
Kincaid's history against Buffalo is actually pretty good. Against New England, excuse me.
Chiefs DST is 7th for Jamey and Heath and 11th for Dave. And the Jaguars, actually, they don't get sacked. 3 sacks all season. It's amazing how much their offensive line has been holding. I'm going to say good. They've run block well. This is just from what I've read and heard. They've blocked in the run game well, and they've only given up 3 sacks. Got to be doing something right. All right, Sunday Night Football, New England at Buffalo. Buffalo sees the fewest pass attempts in the NFL and allows the fewest passing yards per attempt. So how in are you on Drake May, Jamey?
At this point, number 1 quarterback. He's doing some great things with his legs. I think he's going to have to make a lot of plays in this game. And so just based on what he's shown through 4 starts and what I would expect to be a comeback effort, I like him as a number 1 quarterback.
He's a number 1 quarterback for me. I'm a little bit lower. I think there's some risk that this is a statement game for Buffalo in that, like, New England, you're not on this level yet. And whether it's real or not, the Bills' pass defense has been a lot better than their run defense, and their run defense has been terrible.
Would you start Drake May or Jared Goff at the Bengals?
May.
Goff for me.
Drake May or, I had a good one. Kyler Murray against the Titans.
Kyler for me.
I'm trying to think of how it ranked. Kyler, I think.
Drake May or Dak?
May.
I assume you're not going to want to start a Patriots running back.
Would prefer not to. I mean, this feels like it's more of a Ramondre game just because of trusting the veteran in a big spot. But hopefully, like if there was a setup for Travion Henderson, it's chasing points, get a playmaker on the field, and get him going. Like this should be the type of scenario where they draft where they drafted him for. But it's hard to trust at this point.
I would rather start a Patriots running back than a Patriots wide receiver.
Oh, I'd start Diggs. I'd give him a chance. I mean, he played about 62% of the snaps or something like that, but that was a season high. I feel like it
is a revenge game.
It is. Yeah, that's true.
He had one against them last year and had 14 PPR points for the Texans against Buffalo. But this is his first time going back to Buffalo.
You guys aren't that far apart on Diggs. Jamey has him 29th. Heath has him 34th. Heath is obviously quite concerned about this pass defense. And look, they held Garrett Wilson. The Bills have held Garrett Wilson, both Dolphins wide receivers, both Saints wide receivers to 50 or fewer yards. They are giving up some touchdowns, though, as Zay Flowers had a big game against them. But I'm not saying I'd love to start Diggs. I would just start him over a Patriots running back.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I think I feel more confident that the Bills' run defense is bad than I do that their pass defense is good.
I agree with that 100%. We just don't have a running back for New England that I trust. And so in the case of finally seeing something from Diggs, with the hope that it's now a month into his return from the ACL tear, like now he's starting to get back up to speed, and they need a player like this. So game flow for me would be chasing points. He's going to get some target opportunities, and I think he takes advantage of it.
Would you start RJ Harvey or a Patriots running back?
Probably
Harvey.
Henderson.
Yeah, I've got Harvey, and it has been last week. What was it? 12.5 for Miller, 11.2 for Kamara. So I think you probably get.
I have to make a point here that I should have made earlier. I forgot. Ed Oliver and Matt Milano were limited in practice.
Yeah.
So the Bills have been playing at least the last two games without those two key players, especially Oliver. Oliver, a defensive lineman, Milano, a linebacker. Maybe that helps their run defense if those guys can come.
No, it should if they're healthy.
Yeah. Well, they have like an extra 6 hours to get ready because it's a Sunday night game, so that should help.
Yeah.
Michael Carter.
I wonder if when they make them active, do they go one over to 53 or do they just stop at 53?
They're trying to make a trade right now, which is fine. So would you start both Cardinals running backs over any Patriots running back?
I would.
For me right now, it's Carter, Stevenson, Henderson, DeMarcado.
All right. But these guys are Patriots running backs we don't want to start. Hunter Henry, is he a must start?
Not a great track record for him against this team.
Bad.
For whatever reason, no tight end has more than 3 targets against the Bills this year. Mark Andrews had 1. Juwan Johnson had 3. Juwan Johnson had 28 yards. That's the best for any tight end against Buffalo so far, I believe. I don't know what to make of that. Again, Buffalo is the best team in time of possession. They are just dominating that, almost 34 minutes and 5 seconds of possession. They've seen the 3rd fewest plays in the NFL, so that's helping their defense.
Is this the second best offense that they faced?
Yeah, I'm pumped to see how it looks. I guess I'll stay on Hunter Henry. Brenton Strange or Hunter Henry?
Strange.
Waller or Henry?
Waller.
I have him back to back with Henry higher right now, but that may change.
Andrews or Henry?
Henry.
Start Allen, start Cook. Kincaid or Henry?
Kincaid.
Henry for me.
And I asked you who's the best wide receiver in this game. I think we got different answers. I'll ask you again. Who was it?
It's Diggs for me, and then Shakir.
I think Coleman, Shakir, and Diggs are all within 3 or 4 spots for me, but right now I have Coleman the highest.
As the Patriots secondary gets healthier, I think it's going to be one of the toughest defenses to do anything against.
And by the way, they did not shadow Tedero McMillan last week with Christian Gonzalez. I sort of suspected, at least in his first game back, they've got 2 cornerbacks that they like now. So those guys basically just stayed on their sides of the field. I think they played a lot of zone. Shakir, 4 or 5 targets in each of the last 2 games, but he's had a kind of a crazy touchdown, at least in one, I think both games. So it's tough to trust that. These are guys that if you have a waiver wire running back that you picked up, you get away from these receivers and you play the running backs, right? I mean, that's basically.
Yeah, we keep saying that. I just want to be clear. Like, the only one so far that we know is starting or think is starting is Michael Carter.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But also you have one guy, I'm sure we'll find out, probably similar situation, in a walking boot on a crutches, and another guy where his coach said he may need how much time, whatever time he said for a canal. It's like, so I think it's probably, there's nobody really in the Thursday night game.
All right. Bottom line is they're not great starts. Okay. Dallas is at the Jets. Buffalo DST, by the way, is kind of borderline start. Dallas is at the Jets. Your stat of the game: the last 3 quarterbacks to face the Cowboys have all finished top 4 for the week. Russell Wilson, Caleb Williams, Jordan Love. So that's why Justin Fields is a top 2 or 3 quarterback for everybody, and he is the start of the week. Breece Hall, start or sit?
Start.
I mean, we're starting pretty much everyone that we normally start here, right? And I think Dak is an interesting call. You guys are pretty far apart on him, so we can save him for last. But Breece Hall, Javonte Williams, Garrett Wilson, George Pickens, absolute must starts. Are there any sleepers in this game? Because Kevontae Turpin may not play. So Jalen Tolbert, does he enter the sleeper discussion?
Yes, but you got to be desperate. And again, we're talking about 4 teams on a bye, the wide receiver injuries that we're looking at. So you may need him as a flex in a 3 receiver league. But I just think like Jake Ferguson and Pickens are still going to probably get a lot of target opportunities, and Javonte out of the backfield. So Tolbert, you got a little bit lucky last week. He did have 6 targets. He had more than Turpin in the first game without CeeDee Lamb, but he had that big fluky play on the sideline where, Dak seemed like he was just throwing it away, and Tolbert made a great play. So desperation at best.
All right, and Ferguson, I forgot to mention him, but Jamey mentioned him. Ferguson is number 1 or 2 in the rankings. You are absolutely starting him. So
the biggest sleeper would be Mason Taylor.
Yeah. Let's talk about Mason Taylor. Encouraging stuff the last 2 weeks. He has 13 targets. He's playing a lot. Miami's really bad against tight ends. So that's who he played last week. Dallas actually hasn't been that bad against tight ends, but they're not that good. So starter said Mason Taylor, Jamey.
Low end starter, so behind Strange, for example, I would actually take a chance on him over the Browns tight ends just because of the way that he's performing. So if you're looking at, young tight end in terms of Taylor and Fannin and what their statuses have been the last couple of weeks, it feels like the Jets are trying to get Taylor going, and the Browns just can't get out of their own way to try and get Fannin back involved to the same level from a target perspective. So I don't think Dallas really has played a lot of great tight ends so far this season, which is why their numbers aren't as good as it may look. So I like the setup for Taylor, but again, low end starter. He's dealing with an ankle injury too. I think it's more maintenance, but I love the fact that the Jets, we know what the Jets are. You know what the running back is at this point. You know the quarterback. You know the number 1 receiver, and now we may have a second option in the passing game.
There's a couple things with Taylor, and I like him a lot as a talent. I don't know how much of last week was the Dolphins being so terrible against tight ends. It was a going home game. I'm not sure if we talked about that last week.
Yeah, no.
For Mason Taylor, but had a big family crowd there. He had 10.3 fantasy points the first 3 weeks of the season combined.
Yeah.
I think what's really going to be key here is because the Cowboys' run defense has been pretty good. What's the game script of this game? It's only a 2.5 point spread. Is Justin Fields throwing a lot early? They haven't really done that this year. Or is he just having success as a rusher and scoring fantasy points that way? And there's a 20 attempt game where 10 of them go to Garrett Wilson.
Well, what does this mean for Dak Prescott? Dak is 11th for Jamey. Is our last guy we're going to talk about. 11th for Jamey and 18th for Heath.
16th. No.
12, okay, it has changed since yesterday. 12th for Jamey now and 16th for Heath. So a little bit closer. He had a great game last week, 37 points against Green Bay. But the week before that, 14 points at Chicago. And those were the 2 games that he played without CeeDee Lamb. And he threw 40 passes in both of them. So Jamey, make the case for Dak.
I think he's just in that low end starting group. I don't really trust the Jets secondary aside from Sauce Gardner. So can he find a way to get production from his other options if Pickens, for whatever reason, is shut down? I don't think he's going to fear throwing on Gardner because that really hasn't been his MO. So what version of Dak Prescott will we get here? I think the Jets are going to score points against the Cowboys. I don't think this Cowboys defense is good at all. I think you look at these two teams. Huh?
Hot take. Yeah, they're the worst defense in the world. They suck.
Yeah, right. So the implied total for these two teams, based on how they've operated so far this season, suggests that that's going to be the case. And so Dak's track record so far this season, when not playing the slow-paced Eagles, has been 34 or 40 or more attempts. He had 34 attempts in week 1. I think in 34 attempts, even against his Jets defense, he'll have success. So I guess Heath just likes the streaming guys better, which is fine. You know, their matchups are great. To me, I'm going to stick with what Dak did in a very difficult matchup last week and hope that carries over against the Jets.
Yeah, I think that mentioning the slow-paced Eagles is a good reference point against the Jets too. Like that's kind of my concern with Dak. And you said it, Adam, like it's 40 attempts for Dak every week, but it's 30 attempts or fewer against the Jets every week. And Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Tua, all below 20 fantasy points the last 3 weeks. Not necessarily because the defense is so good. Those guys were pretty efficient passers the last 2. It's just they're not throwing that much because the Jets run the ball so much. The clock's always running when they have the ball.
It's true.
It could be a similar game to what happened for the Cowboys in week 1 where Javonte gets 2 touchdowns and Dak played great.
Yeah.
I think this game's going over 47.5. I'm excited. The Dolphins-Jets game ended up going over, right? Heath, because it was a
yes,
yeah. We were talking about
it did, and that was like should have gone way over. It went over with a fumble at the goal line,
right,
and like 3 red zone field goals.
Yeah, and I don't think we really talked about this, but I can't imagine Isaiah Davis is as big of a goal line threat to Breece Hall,
right,
as Braylon Allen was. So if you have Breece Hall, probably in better long-term outlook right now. Okay, sorry to put it in such blunt terms. Thank you all for watching and listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow with the NFC home games. We'll just do this show again. NFC home games tomorrow and a recap of Thursday Night Football. Good luck tonight, everybody, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.